Um, Learning, I think, basically is the most misunderstood aspect of modernity. Of course, it has a very deep past. There's a big past that one needs to unravel to understand how this whole process of alienation and misunderstanding learning took place in the realm of modernity. Uh, Learning is basically very intangible, so, and I think I've been reflecting that the essence of life basically lies in its intangibility and its mysteriousness. And I think modern preoccupation has been to make everything tangible. Uh, and I think this is probably the key issue that one needs to understand. Uh, of course, one thing will be to look at what really is happening right now, and maybe by understanding what is happening right now, one could, from that seeing, one could also understand its history. But I think it is not very important to go into the history of how this thing evolved. It may be more important to look at what is happening right now, to the way we engage with the world. One thing that is very clear in modern the institutions of learning, or where learning is taking place, is that our cognitive source has become words. Meaning all of our understanding is coming from reading. So basically what it actually does is to reconfigure the way we engage with the world. In real life, the huge world that we are encountering can be only encountered by our whole senses. We are in it. And as we are engaging with it, we come to know what the world is about. For that, of course, we need to be engaging with the real world. Every day, every year, every season, so all these are giving messages to what the world is all about. But by shutting us off from the real world, bringing us to something called school, we have already committed the first crime. That we have covered the world from us, and then through books and through experts, we are trying to understand the world. Now this puts us in the first fundamental shift, which is that we are actually engaging with the real, to the imaginary, and to the codified ways of the world, codified understanding of the world by somebody else. So already we are engaging with second-hand knowledge. We are dealing with the codified, imaginary, symbolized knowledge. Third, we are dealing with what is already known. And this condition, draws out the reasoning process within us to make sense of what we are reading. So reading, basically, if we look at what is reading, we'll find that we are constantly reasoning whether to agree with it or to disagree with it. It doesn't leave you into a space of unknown, whether you just stay with the unknown and get out of the reasoning mind. So reasoning continuously makes you into a agreement disagreement kind of a situation, and then it builds that quality in us. See, ultimately what we must understand is that we are formed by the conditions in which we are living, or to be more precise, it is the cognitive conditions, it's the cognitive source that conditions us, that forms us. We are a product of what we are engaging with. So the learning is what we have become, not what we know. This is a huge misunderstanding that modernity has created, that these two things are separate, that what we know is separate from what we are. What we are is what we learn. Now that, which also means that we are formed by our totality of experience, not what just we hear and we use our mind to understand. The whole being is involved in forming, in being, in transforming. So whatever is our engagement, it is constantly transforming us. Either it is distorting us, damaging us, or it is, it is blossoming us in our fullness. So what is the structure of language? What is the structure of written text? And that is the structure of modern man. This is, I think, the most important aspect that one can inquire, that the structure of our cognitive source is what awakens in us the structures that are needed to engage with that. So it's a process of awakening that actually happens. So the cognitive source is what awakens us. Language awakens in us linearity, the fragmentary nature, the fact that we are always dealing with someone else's knowledge, the fact that we are dealing with images, because we're never dealing with the real. We are always dealing with the codified, imagined format. So in one sense, we are totally in an imaginary world because we have never encountered the real. So, in fact, today morning I was thinking about this program called Learning Unlearning that we are doing, that it immediately gives us a message that these two are separate activities. There is learning and there is unlearning. So the very structure of language conveys this to us. But actually, if we look very deeper into this, we realize that these are not two different activities. This happens as one event. Learning and unlearning is one event. True learning is happening, unlearning is happening. When true unlearning is happening, learning is happening. So it is not if you look at the very structure of the language, it can only convey it in a manner that one is after the other. Simultaneity of life can never be conveyed by language. So then we must wonder, what is language for? Because today language has become the most important aspect of our life. We are in fact totally trapped that knowledge has to do with language, communication has to do with language. So it will be interesting to look at how that we have moved from this intangible and mysterious way of our beingness, in which we were in that sense in a very, very defined kind of quality in our being. Because this quality in our being that is demanded by this intangibility and the mysteriousness of life is to be sensitive and aware all the time, which you can see is totally missing in the modern world. Modern world is about pride and arrogance. It seems to think that it can control everything. It seems to think that can manipulate, control, engineer. So this structure you can see in all aspects of modernity. That is why one of the biggest traps of modernity, especially those who are involved in alternatives, are that the alternatives are nothing but a product of the same mind. So the structure, the action, all this will be repeated whether you are in the alternative sector or on the mainstream sector. So it will actually result in nothing actually. And it is very clear that mainstream has always co-opted whatever alternatives were. I mean, you can see the history.